What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Ed and this is Hustle and Grow. On this channel, we talk about all things reselling, business related, anything that's going to help us grow as individuals, entrepreneurs, and help us to get further, faster in life. Okay. But today we're going to talk about 5 different types of resellers. Okay. Now, this isn't a hard, fast rule where you have to, fall right in, but I'm sure as I go through this list, you guys will either agree with me that you know people like this, or maybe you exhibit some of these characteristics yourself. OK, let's get right into it. So the 5 types we're going to go over are the spender, the hoarder, the rabbit, the turtle, and the professor. OK, and we're going to cover 3 different areas when it comes to these types of resellers. All right. And when you go through this, or as you listen to this, just ask yourself, where do you fall? You ain't got to raise your hand or nothing like that, or bring yourself to the front of the class. But just ask yourself where you fall. Anyway, we're going to talk about the characteristics that each exhibits. I'm going to give a short example of each type, and then I'm going to talk about ways that you can rectify any of these issues if you fall in to one of these categories, or if you lean more. And that's not to say that falling into one of these categories is necessarily bad, but some of us kind of tend to drift too far one way or another at times, right? And we just need things to kind of bring us back to the center. So let's start off with the first type, the spender. So what are some of the characteristics of the spender? The spender enjoys the thrill of buying and sometimes may invest impulsively in items. OK, it's all about that dopamine shot, right? So the spender is going to be impulsive and is going to get their high off of going out there, and that adrenaline's gone and just looking for the deal and wanting to spend money. Some of the habits of the spender include frequently splurging on inventory. Also, the spender may have struggles with budgeting because they like to spend, and because that's where they get the most out of reselling. They don't really like to list. They don't really like to do anything else. But when it comes to buying, that's what they like to do. And so budgeting is kind of hard for them as well. And some of the pitfalls of falling into this category of being a spender is one, potential financial strain. Because your money's always going out, you're going to be over leveraged a lot. And your cash flow is going to be in it. You're going to have a problem with cash flow. Sometimes it's best to sit back and let money start coming back in after you spent a lot. And you got to, I've done this myself, guys. Trust me. I wasn't a super bad spender, but I was a spender at one point, and I would have that fear of missing out. Like, if I didn't grab this lot, or if I didn't grab this pallet right now, this deal would never come back around again, and I would find myself over leveraged. And so I had to rein that back in. And so through discipline, I was able to do that. And so this is one of the pitfalls of being a spender, is that a lot of times you'll become over leveraged. Your cash reserves will almost always be lower than usual. If an emergency comes up, you'll find it difficult to be able to cover those emergencies or to cover those big expenditures. Also, the spender will have difficulty in achieving any real consistent and sustainable profits in their business as a result of those actions. OK, so what is an example of the spender? I'm sure you can already picture it in your mind, but here's an example. Here's an easy example anyway. So we have our friend Diane here. OK, now Diane loves attending auctions and often gets caught up in the excitement of bidding. OK, she spends a significant portion of her budget on unique items without thoroughly researching their market value. As a result, she occasionally struggles to make a profit because of her impulsive buying habits. OK, and I just want y'all to think about that. It says Diane loves attending auctions and often gets caught up in the excitement of bidding. She spends a significant portion of her budget on unique items without thoroughly researching the market value. And as a result, occasionally struggles to make profit because of her impulsive buying habits. And I'm sure that many of you can definitely identify with that at one point or another in your reseller journey. You may have found yourself doing the same things. And so what we don't want to do is make sure that we don't fall into that cycle, which can, be very, very detrimental to our business. Now, how can we avoid that pitfall of falling into this, what I would call an extreme category of the spender? Well, here's what we can do. You could set a monthly budget for sourcing inventory, and you would follow that budget, and you would stick to that budget. Especially, you would be super rigid, especially in the beginning. The one thing about creating a habit is a lot of times you have to be more extreme in the beginning because you don't have that habit, and your natural inclination would be to fall back to your old habits. And so you want to set a monthly budget for sourcing inventory. Also, by researching and planning purchases in advance, you can curb that impulse to buy. You can curb it. You have to. And you have to get over that fear of missing out, that FOMO, thinking that if you don't take advantage of this deal right now, trust me when I tell you, there's going to be other deals. Man, that used to get me, man. I used to think I have to get this deal right now. And it always comes back around one way or another. And a lot of times it'll come back around as a better deal. So you can curb that impulse by buying and focus on items with higher profit potential. And you have to also regularly review your budget and financial goals. And this will help you stay on track regularly. In the beginning, regularly may mean monthly. I don't think you would need to do it weekly or anything. Maybe every 2 weeks. Definitely monthly would be the minimum. Every month you would go over your budget, you would go over your spending, and you would track it and make sure that you stand on track. OK, so that's the spender. Our next type of reseller is the hoarder. The hoarder, the perpetual death pile person. OK, so what are some characteristics of the hoarder? The hoarder accumulates a very, very large inventory without any clear selling strategy. OK, and a hoarder. And look, some of these will blend into each other, guys. I want y'all to know that some of these will blend into each other. That's why I said it's not like hard and fast rules to this. Some of these blend in. The hoarder, the spender could definitely be a hoarder, but not always. Right. But anyway, the hoarder accumulates a very large inventory without any clear selling strategy. Buying stuff, don't really know what platforms to sell it on, how they sell on those platforms and so forth. All right. So those are some of the characteristics. The habit is that the hoarder will hold on for items for a long time, even too long. It might struggle with decluttering, knowing when to let something go, thinking that, oh, I can't sell this for that much because I paid this much or anything like that. I'm $5 into these. So if I sell it here, I'm only going to make $2 profit, or I might sell it at a loss, or thinking that everything has value. Sometimes some things are just bad buys, and sometimes you just got to get rid of it, whether that's donation, heck, giving it away. A lot of times you just got to give some of that stuff away, guys. All right. And then some of the pitfalls of falling into this category of the hoarder is that you'll have storage issues, right? You start running out of room, running out of space. Some people think that they need a larger space and will end up paying for more storage when you really don't need that storage. You need to get rid of that stuff that's just sitting there because you don't need it anyway. Slow turnover, right? Because you probably got a bunch of bad buys mixed up in there. So you got some slow turnover going on. And then you have the potential for items to lose value. And that's the biggest thing, because the longer your items sitting there, heck, when you bought some of those items, maybe they was worth a lot. Maybe they had good margins at that time, but because you let them sit for so long, that probably eats away at that profit margin. And if it is still worth anything, maybe it's not much, if anything at all. And so that's another danger of letting your inventory just sit, because it loses its value a lot of times over time. Unless it's some type of collectible that's going to gain value, the majority of us do not sell in those types of categories. OK, and so here's an example of the hoarder. We're going to use our buddy Alex here. All right. So Alex has a garage full of vintage collectibles and antiques that he acquired over the years. While he enjoys the thrill of finding unique items, he hasn't listed any of them for sale. His inventory continues to grow, and he faces challenges in efficiently selling through the items he has accumulated. OK, and so you see, because he hasn't taken the time to list the things that need to be listed and, do the things that actually require you to sell stuff, these things begin to build up. And it's even worse when they're items that are long tail. OK, and so what are some ways that Alex could actually avoid falling into this category and actually killing his business, because he has so much inventory, none of it's moving, none of it's selling, he's not listing it, and it's already long tail items? Well, here's how Alex can avoid falling into these pitfalls. First thing if you fall into that category of the hoarder, is you have to implement a clear inventory strategy. OK, everything has to have a place, and it's not on the floor in a pile and not in the corner of your house. Everything. And if that means if you're going to put it in an inventory system, that means it has to be listed, right? A pile on the floor in the corner of your house, under your bed, in the garage, in the closet, that is not a place. All right. Everything must be processed and put into inventory. That's first and foremost. OK, so here's the example that we use for Alex. Alex can categorize his inventory based on factors like demand, seasonality, and potential profit margins. Developing a clear strategy for when and how to sell different items will help him to manage his inventory more effectively, preventing it from becoming a burden. And so I just want y'all to pay attention to that. OK, a clear strategy for when and how to sell different items. OK, clear strategy. It can't be just a thought in your head. Also, it should be categorized based on factors like demand, seasonality, and profit potential. So that doesn't necessarily mean the highest profit items will go first, because if there's a demand for an item that has less profit potential, then you're going to put that item up before you will put up an item with a higher profit potential but less demand. Remember, cash flow is king. You have to get the things out there that are going to sell the fastest, but that don't mean you neglect the other things either. OK, so that's the hoarder. Our next type of reseller is the rabbit. Who is the rabbit? What is the rabbit? The rabbit is the fast flipper. OK, what are some of the characteristics of the rabbit? All right, the rabbit focuses on quick flips and short-term profits. Quick flips, short-term profit, right? Oh, I found this, got a 1,000% sell through. Boom, let me sell it. All right. Some of the habits of the rabbit are constantly monitors market trends and frequently updates their inventory. And there's nothing wrong with this necessarily, guys. I just want you to know that there's nothing wrong with quick flips, short-term profit, monitoring market, all of that. But some of the pitfalls of falling into this category of the rabbit is that you risk burnout, and you also may miss out on any long-term opportunities because you're so focused on those short-term flips. There's some long-term opportunities there as well. For me, I got definitely some traits of the rabbit. I love quick flips, but I also, and part of that is my impatience. And so because of that, I have missed out on long-term opportunities. And so I've been trying to rein that back a little bit. I still want the quick flips. For me, the quick flips are the cash flow, the things that keep going and keep bringing money into my business. And then that way I can sustain some of those long-term flips, some of those things that might have a higher average sell price, but it's just going to take a little longer to sell. OK, so we don't want that to happen. What's an example of the rabbit? I'm going to give you guys a quick example of the rabbit. So we're going to use Joshua in our example. All right. Joshua is always on top of the latest trends and regularly updates his online store with trendy fashion items. He's quick to spot popular products and capitalize on short-term demand. However, he rarely invests in items with long-term value and is constantly chasing the next big trend. And so that falls into the category with your BOLO chasers and people like that. Look, that can burn you out. That can definitely burn you out. And it's definitely not a good strategy business wise to have your business bulk, to have the bulk of your business based on that type of model. I just don't think it is just for your own personal health and sanity and just for your business. I mean, those things are going to come and go, and you can stretch yourself way too thin trying to do that. Let's talk about some remedies for not becoming the crazy rabbit. OK, so the main thing you want to do to not fall into these pitfalls of the rabbit is to have a diverse product portfolio. OK, you want to have a good mix of those fast flips. We'll put it in the fast range, the medium range, and the slow range. OK, all these things, though, will make up a good and healthy business because you'll have your fast flip items that'll keep cash flow coming into your business. You'll also have your medium sell through items that, sell every few months or so. And then you'll have your longer, higher average sell price items. Remember, the longer an item takes to sell, the higher you want that margin to be. You don't want low margin items taking long to sell. All your low margin items should be those fast to medium flip items, and only high average sell price items with higher margins should be your slow moving items. OK, can avoid the risk of burnout by diversifying his product offerings. Instead of solely focusing on short-term trends, he can allocate a portion of his inventory to evergreen products with enduring demand, ensuring a more stable and sustainable type of business. Okay. If you fall into this category, or if you find yourself always being that bolo chaser or anything like that, you might want to take some of this advice and just diversify your product portfolio, have a good mix of items, keep your cash flow going with the fast flips, but also look for higher margin, slower selling items to add that stability, to be like the anchor of your business. Okay, now our next type of seller, the turtle. The slow turtle, but hey, slow and steady get the job done, right? So who is the turtle? Here's some characteristics of the turtle. The turtle takes a patient and strategic approach to selling, okay? And some of the habits of the turtle are that they invest in items with long-term value and doesn't rush the selling process. But some of the pitfalls of the turtle is that it requires patience and that they may miss out on some short-term profits. Now, the turtle, for me, I definitely understand the patient part, because one of the reasons, and I think that some of these characteristics of the turtle that you need that to be a reseller. I lack patience, something I've been working on greatly, which is one of the reasons I don't have a lot of those long-term items with a higher average sale price that may sit for some times, but it's going to boost my margins, because when they do sell, it's going to sell for higher margins. And so that's something that I can work on. But like I said, some of those pitfalls is that it requires that patience, and you can miss out on some short-term profits. Now, I wouldn't, because that's what I look for. But if your natural mindset is bent more toward being that type of reseller, the turtle type, you don't necessarily look for those short-term profits that could increase your cash flow in the short term and help you build up cash reserves so that you got more money to invest in maybe some of those other things that you like to get that might take longer to sell and have higher margins. Okay. And so here's our example for the turtle. Okay. We're going to use Emily. Now, Emily specializes in rare and vintage books. She spends a considerable amount of time researching each book's history and market demand. While her inventory turnover may be slower compared to some resellers, she constantly fetches higher prices for unique and sought after titles. Okay, so that sounds good, right? And if you already have a good pipeline and a good system and a good network and good processes, that could be good. But it takes a lot of inventory to sustain that type of business model if you don't have items with a faster sell through mixed in there. Okay. And so that's going to get us to what some of the pitfalls of being a turtle and only the turtle are. And so if your business is if you're just a turtle type, you're going to struggle, especially in the beginning, you're going to struggle with cash flow. You're going to have cash flow issues. You're going to have inventory building up. You're going to run into storage issues. If you don't have your pipeline and your connections all in order, you can run into sourcing issues. You might run out of ways to get the type of items that you need to sustain your business. You might not have enough knowledge about the outlets, the best outlets, not just any outlet, but the best outlets that's going to get you the best margins. Okay. And so let's see how we can avoid some of these pitfalls. What's the solution to not being only a turtle? Okay. You don't want to be just a turtle. You got to mix it up. Remember, yin and yang. You got to have balance in life. You got to have balance in reselling. The main and number one thing you want to do is you want to optimize your turnaround time. All right. So let's go back to our example of Emily. All right. So Emily, what can she do? She can implement strategies to optimize her inventory turnover without sacrificing quality. This might involve identifying faster selling items within that niche or within whatever niche that you sell in, and using promotions to stimulate sales. Also, balance and patience with proactive measures can enhance the overall efficiency of your business. Okay. And so I want you to listen and pay attention to what I just said, right? You got to implement strategies that will optimize your inventory turnover without sacrificing quality. All right. And what that might involve is, one, promotions. A lot of people don't want to do promotions on eBay, but you might have to sometimes. Remember, the name of the game is selling, not holding on for every single red cent, man. It's selling, moving product. OK, so you want to use that. You want to use promotions to stimulate sales. And you also want to balance that with higher average or higher sell through items. Have a good balance. Have a good mix. Don't be just a turtle, because that could actually end up putting you out of business, especially if you haven't been doing it long enough to have everything in place that you would require to sustain yourself. But even the bigger ones who do a lot of slower moving items, they got their higher average sale price items in there too, because they understand the importance of having that cash flow. But a lot of times you're going to run out of space, and then when you got to increase your storage space, what's that doing? That's taking more of your money out of your business, but it's not coming back in fast enough. So eventually you're going to run out of cash. And now to our final type of reseller, the professor. And no, I'm not talking about the professor on Gilligan's Island either. All right. So who is the professor? I'm sure that most of you guys can guess who it is, but here's some characteristics. The professor is analytical and detail oriented and researches extensively. But some of the habits of the professor, well, spends a significant amount of time on market analysis and planning. But some of the pitfalls of being a professor is that you can run the risk of overthinking and have delayed decision making. And because of that, you can miss out on opportunities. OK, I want you to remember that. Don't fall into the analysis paralysis area, of thinking. I've done that myself before. Overthink it. Like analysis paralysis can be really bad, man. And so you don't want to run the risk of overthinking, delayed decision making, and thereby missing out on certain opportunities. OK, let's go through a quick example of the professor. I'm going to use Michael in this example. Michael meticulously researches the market before making any buying decisions and analyzes the sales data, trends, and customer preferences to identify profitable opportunities. However, his thorough approach sometimes leads to analysis paralysis, causing him to miss out on time-sensitive deals. I've done that before myself. I've overthought things. I've taken my time. I wondered about it. Oh, I don't know. Is this a good deal? Let me check this. And I'll go do some other stuff, and then I'll get taken away by life and things happening. Come back a couple days later, the deal's gone. Somebody else took advantage of it because I wanted to check this chart and check that chart and check this site and check that and see what somebody else thought about this or somebody else thought about that. I missed out on opportunities. There's a few times, man, I kicked myself in the butt because of that. OK, don't fall into that same pitfall. So here's the solution to not become too much of the professor. OK, set decision making timelines. If you're looking at an item, or you're looking at a lot, or you're looking at a pallet, or you're looking at whatever type of purchase it is you want to make, and you want to do some research, set a timeline for yourself, a deadline. Say, all right, I'm gonna give it 24 hours. I'm gonna do all my research, and if I can't figure it out, either I'm gonna buy or I'm not gonna buy. Don't just say, oh, I'll check and get back to it, because that's what I did a lot of times. It's like, all right, well, I'm gonna look at some things and then I'll come back to it. And by the time I get back to it, it's been gone. You know what I mean? So set a deadline for your decision making and research and process. OK, we'll go back to our example of Michael. All right. Michael, the professor, can establish specific timelines for decision making during the research phase. By setting deadlines for analysis and incorporating a risk assessment framework, he can ensure a thorough yet timely decision making process, preventing missed opportunities due to overthinking. Real plain and simple, folks. Real plain and simple. There we go. We got the spender, the hoarder, the rabbit, the turtle, and the professor. And I'm sure each of us, in one way or another, have fallen into one or a few of these categories. And the main point of me bringing this up is that if you find, as I went through those, if you find yourself leaning in more toward one of those in the unhealthy way, you got to recognize that, and you got to take the steps that I outlined briefly, but that I did outline in getting out of that mindset. You don't want to be too much of a spender. You're not going to have enough cash. You're going to run out of cash. It's going to lead to you in some ways becoming a hoarder because you ain't going to be selling it because you're going to be always spending it. And eventually your cash reserves are going to shrink down. But also the same thing can happen being a hoarder, right? You just out there, you buying stuff. Maybe you made too many bad buys. Maybe you have too many long tail items. Things are just piling up. Maybe you just like to stand around, and because you got so much stuff, you feel like you're successful. I feel like some people got that mindset, like because there's so much around them, they feel successful. No, that's not success, man. It's one thing to have a bunch of inventory, but it's moving and it's selling and you got good cash flow. It's another thing to have a bunch of inventory, but you ain't really selling nothing. Don't be a hoarder, y'all. And then the rabbit, it's good to have some fast flips in there. You know, you want that thing that you put up and boom, a couple hours later or a day or two later it sells, and that's good. But that's not really how you build a healthy long-term business either. You need a good mix of items, okay? Turtle, it's good to have those long-term items that we was just talking about, but also you want to mix some of that in with the fast flips so that you don't run into cash flow problems, so that you don't run into those storage problems. And then finally, the professor, you don't want to get paralyzed by analysis. You want to look, you want to analyze a deal, you want to analyze an item, you want to do it quickly. You need to set deadlines. And if you're going to buy it, you're going to buy it. And if you ain't, you ain't. So tell me down in the comments below, which type of reseller do you think you are more like? and which do you think you struggle with most? I told y'all, I've struggled most with being a rabbit and just focusing more on short-term flips, and also being a professor and just letting myself like miss out on deals. The spending thing, probably a little bit of that too. I'll probably say I fall into those three, if anything: the spender, the rabbit, and the professor. But I've definitely got a lot more balance in my business, and I'm still learning. I'm still getting even more balance, and I'm learning how to have a diverse product portfolio, how to have a diverse platform portfolio, and just how to run a healthy business. So if you found this video useful and you took something from it and it's something that can help you out, do me a favor and throw me a like. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll check y'all out in the next one.